Welcome to our session on top tips to configure ActivTrak like a pro. It's really going to be a great one. I'd like to introduce our speakers today. We've got Suzanne Carroll and Omri Goldstrom, who are both senior leaders on our product team. So I can't imagine two better people to take you through this configuration session. These are the people for sure. So I'm very excited about that. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Suzanne.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate that. All right. I'm excited to share. There's a lot of you on the call today, and we've got quite a bit to cover. So let's get started. We're going to start with those account level settings that go across the entire account, and then get into those potential false alarms, which are the mouse jiggler alarms, and a report that will help you distinguish the noise from what you really need to pay attention to, as well as all of our integrations and the ActivTrak Academy, which is where you and your staff and colleagues can get trained up on how to use ActivTrak and how to configure it. So let's get started. I'm going to
Ooh,
begin.
hey, Suzanne, real
Yeah,
quick. I think we should share the poll results if you want to like dig
sure.
into
Do
just to
it.
kind of see here. Just real quick, just because I said we would share them, so I want to be honest, keep myself honest, right? So it looks like about 58%, the top thing bringing them is configuring account level settings, with about 29% wanting to really understand how to set up potential false activity alarms. And then we've got the rest of the group rounding it out with integrating data, so calendar and PTO, those kinds of things. So that's kind of where we landed.
That's nice. And I saw that somebody in the Q&A asked a question saying they couldn't choose two. They just wanted, but if they could, they would make sure to include the mouse jiggler. Well, don't worry. We're definitely going to cover that, as well as all three of these options. Luckily, this is the order that we're going to be covering in it too. So the top hitting items will be first.
Awesome. Thanks, Suzanne.
Thanks, Megan. Okay, so configuring your account, what most of you guys are looking for. We're going to start with why it matters. And to me, the main focus on why you need to configure your account is to make sure that your ActivTrak account reflects your organization. When you have it set up accurately, the data is more accurate. For example, classification, once it's classified and is kept up to date with your classifications that reflect your organization, then your managers, your leaders, everyone who's using this data can really rely on it because they know it's accurate for their teams. So that helps with real-time and longer-term trends of analysis. It also helps with configuring, who sees what, when they see it, how they have access. We can make sure that you can see any outliers or exceptions and address those proactively. And then allowing you to see that full day of productivity, not just the data that's brought in through our agents or your employees' digital activity, but also offline details that give context to their day and really complete the full day. So we'll get into that. Now, the first things I'm going to talk about are the account level settings. So we have a few slides on this, and we'll share these slides after the webinar. But most of what I'm going to be doing is going to be in the app itself, so you can see exactly how to do it and where it is. But you can come back to these slides or even the recording to see that again. So we're going to start with sensitive data visibility. We're a privacy first company, and so we want to start there so that way you can set up your account based on your company's needs, any local regulations, all those different things. Then we'll get into setting up the active and passive time and how that is collected for your organization. We'll look at active day threshold. That's mostly used, actually it's only used for the upper plans, so premium and professional. If you're on those lower plans, it's still helpful to know because you'll see some of those features in that. And then we'll talk about time zone a little bit. And once we get that, we'll get into classification. So for sensitive data visibility, this is, like I said, ActivTrak is privacy first. We make sure that our defaults do not include any sensitive data. Right now, I consider sensitive data things like images of an employee's screen that you could take through an alarm that captures a screenshot, screen views, things like that. Also, you'll notice full URLs and title bars. Those can at times include sensitive information. We are a Google shop, so we use Gmail. And if you see the title bar of an email when you're in Gmail, or even the full URL, you can start to see what those people are working on, who they're emailing, what the topics are. And sometimes that's a little too sensitive. Managers don't want employees to see that, or it feels too sensitive for managers to see their employees' title bars. So you can configure and choose that visibility of the sensitive data. There's 3 options here: basic, advanced, and full. Full is one that is only available if you have the screen details add-on. So that's an additional cost. However, that's where you get the most sensitive data, the most information. So for the majority of our accounts, the basic or advanced works for you. Let me get into the account itself and I'll show you what this looks like. So you can see in this one, in my screenshot that I took here, that is what it looks like if you have either a trial or you have screen details enabled. But for my account, we don't have screen details enabled, but we do have the ability to go up to advanced, and that's what we have. So we have the basic details of activities and the full URLs. Instead of just the domain, which is included in basic, you can see the full URL there and the title bar. You can see up here, the title bar is account configuration. And so for our account, because we have an advanced, you can see all of that. If you were in basic, you couldn't see that, and you could just see that I'm in app.activtrak.com. I already was here when I went over, but if you go to settings and then account configuration, it's right at the top. The most important thing that we have here is the sensitive data visibility and giving you that control. Okay, so let's go into active time settings. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, still in settings and account configuration. I'm going to skip over passive for right now and just look at active time. So for those of you who are maybe new to ActivTrak or have a few questions on this, active time is when the user is actively engaging with their machine. They're providing input either by a mouse or a keyboard or any other input into the machine. And we default this, we're already set in this account to the default. We default it to 60 minutes. So that means any session that the user isn't changing their title bar or the URL, so they're on the same page, we say only 60 minutes for that. And the reason we do that is because it is very, very rare for people to go above 20 minutes in one activity. You have to be super focused to be on the same page, the same title bar without switching to another one. And anything over 60 minutes is likely either a mouse jigglers happening or there's an issue going on there. So we recommend you keep this to 60 minutes. In fact, you can adjust it from 30 to 120, so half an hour to 2 hours. Or if you'd like, you can track it indefinitely. We don't recommend that. It's in here primarily because some of our earlier customers were used to that, so they wanted to keep it. And we have that there, but we highly recommend keep it at this default. So that way you can just see the active time that is, we believe, real for the user, and it's not just continuously going, which is a very, very rare situation when they don't have false activity. So that's active time. And then next we're going to look at passive time, just right above it. Passive time is similar to active, where active is when they're providing inputs into the machine, but for passive is when they stop providing inputs. So for example, when I sit back and I'm on this Zoom and I'm not clicking around, if I do that in our settings, you can see for more than 6 minutes, then it's going to start collecting passive time. And it will continue to collect that for 4 minutes. And so that adds up to a total of 10 minutes where the user hasn't provided input, 6 of which are considered active, 4 is going to be recorded as passive. And the reason we do this is because we recommend that you take a look at how your employees work. Passive, we don't really know what the employee is doing. They could have walked away from their computer. They could be watching a training like you are now. Some people are, multitasking during trainings or during calls, so they're not engaged, or they are engaged in providing input to their computer. Others, like I know our CEO, every time she's in a meeting, she's sitting back and she's focused. She might be taking notes with a pen and paper, but there's no input to her machine. So she goes passive more frequently than, say, our sales team, who are always actively looking at things on their computers and doing things like that. So it really depends on your organization. We start the default here at 2 minutes. So 2 minutes of no activity. Then that's when passive time will start to be collected. And then we stop after 5 minutes as a default. So that's total of 7 minutes of inactivity. That's when it stops collecting and it goes into inactive. We recommend that you set the stop to be somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. And we recommend you don't collect it indefinitely. The reason why we have it there is similar to what we have with active time settings, is because that's how it was in the past. But we've learned that tracking passive time indefinitely is not useful because we don't know what the user's doing. If they are tracking it indefinitely and you're collecting that, they could be off, running errands for a couple hours and come back and that's still being collected. It's not as useful. So frankly, when they're not providing input, there's no need to collect that after a certain amount of time. Some companies bring this down to a very short amount of time, so that way it's just shown as inactive. There's no data there, it's not collecting, and it's available to see like what they were doing before, but you have that flexibility to really figure out what works for your organization, how much leniency you want to give when you start collecting and when you stop collecting that. It really depends on how frequently they're in meetings, what they're doing during meetings, things like that, but it's up to you to do it. We recommend, as I said, stopping between 5 to 10. And if you want to completely exclude passive time, saying they're not working on their computer or they're not providing input, we don't know what they're doing, we don't want to collect anything there, you can do that. You can do that by setting stop to 0 right here. And you can, and then the start to 5 to 10 minutes to ensure you're, really taking into consideration short pauses, where short pauses throughout the day. If it's 5 minutes, that's they might be sitting back listening in a video or a call or doing something in their notebook. If it's 10 minutes, that gives a little bit more leniency. Maybe they went to get a cup of water or went to the restroom or something like that. But it's all up to you to do it and to change it there. Now, please note that when you change this, so let me bring this up into our recommendation, and I hit save, this is going to be going forward. All passive time will be stopped collected after 5 minutes, and it won't go backwards. We can't change that historical data. It's already recorded. It's already there. So just keep in mind when you're making these changes, it's only for going forward. All right.
Hey, Suzanne, just
Mhm.
to anticipate a potential question, sometimes there are exceptions. So we have passive time exceptions where maybe you have a kind of team that really is on a lot of calls and maybe not expected to take notes for whatever reason. So they kind of sit there passively, but they're engaged and you accept that. Or maybe with active time settings, I've seen a case where there are support teams that work in a remote desktop controlling their client's machine. And so they really can be doing lots of different things, but on their machine, it only looks like they're in the remote desktop tool for over an hour. So if you have specific employees who need exceptions to these, you can work with our support team and we can do overrides on a per computer basis. So don't worry, there you get the benefit of both universal and we can do individual overrides.
That's a good point. Yeah, we do have that capability. The configuration options in the account are for, 95% of our accounts. But if you have a special circumstance, special teams, remote users, or those accessing servers remotely, let us know and we can definitely help you. For most of these things, we can help you with special configurations.
Yeah, and reach out to our support team. If they can't answer it, they literally ping Suzanne or me. So you've got a direct line to us.
Yeah, and you can just reach out to them right here. That's the easiest way. And then also at support.activtrack.com.
Hey, Suzanne, we did have a question.
Yeah,
So, real quick, it said, so in this case, for the first 6 minutes of passive, it will not show as passive and will still show as active.
that's right.
Okay, perfect.
Because
Great.
oftentimes people on our team, and this is the tech team for ActivTrak, so they'll be interacting with things. Maybe they are listening in on a one-on-one, doing all sorts of different things where they're not directly providing input. And so we give that leniency to say 6 minutes makes sense. We went above the 2-minute default. Okay, so then let's go into the next one, which is the active day threshold. This one is directly in Insight. So this is for those who are in the professional or the premium accounts. And it's right up here at the top. So you go to Insights and then Configuration, and this one's called Configuration to Compute Averages. So the benefits of the Insights reports is a lot of trending analysis over a long period of time of your employees' work. So our live reports are up to date by the second of how people are working right now and always up to date there. But it's just giving you that data. In Insights, it's a lot of averages, calculating, your average productive hours per day, your focus per day, all of those different things. And so we have this configuration to compute those averages. You can say exactly how many hours, productive hours per day to consider a day active. We have it set here to the default of 2 hours. We recommend you keep it between 2 and 3 hours. And that's because oftentimes, like I know I've seen Omri do this on occasion when he's on vacation, he'll come in and check a few things and he's very dedicated. So he'll go in and look at a few things on his computer and help his team out while he's on vacation. And it might be 30 minutes, it might be an hour, but it's not a full day. And if we calculated his averages with that 1 hour day, that would bring all the other averages down. So we say, only consider it in the averages when a user has had 2 hours or more. And this also helps for weekends. I know I've done that a number of times. You might check in and work for a short period of time, but you're not putting in a full day. So we don't want to pull down all of the averages, whether it's average start time, your average collaboration hours, your productive hours per day, all of those different things. So we set this minimum productive hours here to consider that an active day. Okay,
Hey,
and then
Suzanne, to anticipate another question,
yeah.
if they work below that, in this case, 2 hour threshold, does that time get thrown out? Do they get credit for that as part of their week?
Yes, so we still consider it. You can still access all of that activity in live reports and throughout, even throughout Insights. It's just when we're computing the averages of how people are working that we don't consider that.
Yeah. And it actually it adds to the total time. So if you include that like hour or two on the weekend and that got them to 40 hours, we'll still count the time that they put always. We just won't divide it by a sixth day on the weekends, right? We'll only divide it by 5 work days.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. The insights reports are really good at looking at things over a longer period of time and the trends of how people are working as opposed to in moment. So using this threshold helps you there, and helps you really consider what's happening over a long period of time and be less focused on one particular day. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, one of the last settings that I'm going to go into is time zone. So if I go back down to settings, and this is applicable for all plans, all accounts, I'm going to go right here into the time zone. So with ActivTrak today, when you're looking at the data in the application, or maybe you're using Active Connect, you can set one time zone here, and that goes across the entire organization. And you can select that right here. We have it under Central Time because our headquarters are here in Austin. And you can also select the date format that you'd like to show, and even the time format if you want to see 24 versus 12 hours. And so that shows in all the accounts. Everything will be shown in Central Time, with month, day, year in 12-hour increments, or 12-hour format instead of the 24-hour. Now, the second part of that is our activity time and time zone. So our agents, when they are on everyone's machines and computers, they're collecting not only the activity that they're working on, but they also can see this date and time for the individual's machine. And so we know, for me, in my case, I'm in Central Time Zone. My clock is set to Central Time Zone, so it's going to be the same. But we have employees from Puerto Rico to Alaska and even Hawaii. So there's many different time zones that are out there. And we can see, if you select display down here, within the activity log, you can see both the activity time, meaning what their clock says on their machine, and that time zone, plus the account time zone. And so that's directly in the activity log, and you'll see both of them logged. You can choose to show those columns or not, and that helps you understand where they are. Now, this is where ActivTrak stands today. Going forward, later this year, we're going to start showing this activity time in a lot of the live reports. So we have a number of customers who have people across many different time zones. And sometimes that time zone spreads 12 hours. In Arizona compared to the Philippines, for example, is a common use case. And once we have that new feature, which will come later this year, and let us know if you're interested, that's when we'll start to show that information. So this will change. We're always changing and improving ActivTrak, and we hope to get that alarm, I'm sorry, I read something that said alarm, that time zone out within the next 6 to 9 months.
And I think, Suzanne, you may have seen like a couple of questions that came in, but it's kind of related to this like activity time and things like that. And so I think it's still a good time to, talk about it. I know we're going to get into some alarms in just a little bit, so I don't want to steal Omri's thunder, but is there a way for, if someone isn't reaching those thresholds of certain times, that you can get alerted about that? So if they're not having that active time that you expect.
Absolutely. Let me get into it. So with any of our, sorry, I'm in the, yeah, here we go. Within activity breakdown, within insights, this is where you can see in this users tab for a particular team, everything that they're doing throughout that day. So those averages I was mentioning was things like this: productive hours per day, the average over this 7-day time period of their productive, passive, active, all of those good details. Now, if you go up here to this more filter, and you say productive hours is less than or equal to 3 hours, for example, or ours is set to 2, so let's do 2 hours. Then we'll set that filter, we'll refresh this page, and that'll show us anybody under 2 hours. So it probably will show us, yep, okay, so nobody's there. And then I can set up a subscription based on these filters. I'm going to create a new one. So you can see I already have a couple here for the product team of working less than 3 or 4 hours a day. I'm going to set this one up because it's a different team. So I want to get this. I can add anybody within this account to it. I can change the subject. This is API and integrations. Oop, I need to spell it right. I want to get that weekly on a Monday, but you can do it daily if you'd like. I want to set it in the morning and include a link. Here's the filters that we've set up. All right, that's right. And then the email message down here is when you set it up and you can say exactly what you wanted to say. So fewer than, oops, let's do, can I type? And then you can send it down to make sure it makes sense, or you could just save the subscription and it will send on that next Monday. So that's how you can proactively get that information, and we can see when people are not meeting that threshold. All right, yep, and that's available for insights and all of
Okay.
those different reports under there you can subscribe to.
Okay. And it looks like, so we have one comment saying under insights, I don't have all the options that your screen does. Does that have something to do with roles or plan?
It could be one of two things. It could be roles, or it could be that you are an Essentials Plus customer. So Essentials Plus has access to activity breakdown under that plan. This one is professional, and I'm an admin in this account, so I have access to everything. If you'd like to change that, or if you are in a professional plan and you still don't see anything, it's likely because under access, so I'm going under settings, access, and then role access. This is where you set up for each of the individual roles who has access to what, and I can go here. So if I look at insights, I'm going to open this up. You can see our admins have full access to everything. That's why I can see it all. But our power users and our viewers do not have access to things like location, subscriptions, configuration, all of those details. So it could be one of those two things.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay. Thank
Some
you.
of them, maybe they were looking at activity alignment. That's a new thing that's about to be available to everyone, but right now we're just testing it with a short list of customers.
Okay. Before we move on too far from the time zone information, we did have a question. How can we manage monitoring the activity when we have employees in the different time zones with the current settings? So I know we have some things coming, but
Yeah, you can still plan all, or you can still monitor, and you can still have all of that data coming in. You'll just see it in a different time zone. So it doesn't impact how the data is collected or where it is stored, anything like that. It's all going to work the same. It's just that the visibility in the account is showing it in one time zone.
okay. Thank you.
And we can help you, if that doesn't work right now, we can always help you with some custom dashboards using our Active Connect and our data services team. They can help you build something that works now. And if you really need that time zone thing, you can also let us know two ways. One, you can let us know directly through contacting support, or if you email ideas@activtrak.com, that goes directly to the product team, and tell us what you need, tell us why you need it for anything, whether it's time zone or any other feature, and that puts us in our prioritization list. Okay, any more questions, Megan, before I go into classifications?
I think we can move forward.
Okay, great. So classifications is a fun one. When I was talking about configuring data accuracy, this one is especially helpful to do that. So you can see when I go to classifications, it's defaulting to showing you the pending, those that don't have a category or even a productivity status assigned to it. And we're showing up at the top those that have the most duration here. So this one's just under 2 hours. That's most duration across all of your employees within this account. And so somebody spent almost 2 hours doing the iPhone mirroring. Not sure how they use it, but that's great. They were demoing something on their iPhone. If I go into classified, you can start to see everything that either has a category or a productivity status on there. You can see all of this data right now is for the last 30 days. So you can see in our account, we have auto-classified Slack as chat and messaging and productive. And there's, oh my gosh, so many hours in Slack. We do a lot of communication in there because we are a a remote company. We do a lot of chatter in Slack. Now, if I were to go in this directly, I click on any of those lines, you can start to see the details of a particular activity. So I can see that Slack was first seen back in 2019, the total duration, how many users are on there, how it's classified. And I can see, oh, Lewis, one of our senior directors of engineers, is one of the biggest users of that. Laureen, our integrations PM, she is there too. I can see title bars here because we have that advanced details of our privacy setting, and you can see that information. A lot of people go passive in Slack. They go and chat with somebody and then they walk away. That makes a lot of sense. Now down here on group classifications, this is where I can say, okay, for the product team, Slack is not productive. We shouldn't be using it. It's still the same chat and messaging, but I'm going to mark it as unproductive. That means everybody who is within the account is going to have productive unless that employee is listed or that user is listed under this particular team, and then their data is unproductive. This isn't the best example of it, but if I were to use something like social media, you just click that trash can to get rid of it. I don't want to change our data because that would mean a lot of my time would come back as unproductive. But if we were using social media, say for example, LinkedIn or Facebook or something like that, like our marketing team does all the time, that should be classified for the majority of the organization as unproductive. We don't need Facebook to do our jobs, especially as a product manager. But for a marketing specialist, they certainly do. So we would classify Facebook as, social media and unproductive. But for marketing, we would classify that as something along the lines of a category as, a marketing tool or an ad platform and productive. So we know that not every team uses these activities in the same way, and that group classification is a really good way to change and customize it for those individual teams. The other things that I want to mention is a couple of things on how to do this quickly. So there's a lot in there, right? We've got 147. This search bar up here is my favorite way to bulk classify. I'm going to type in .ai because I know we use a lot of AI tools and they aren't all classified. So I can see here already there's 6 on there. Some of them are useful. This one isn't. It just happens to be, that's not AI. So I'm going to go through here, unselect that one, unselect this one, and then I'm going to assign a category, AI tools and assistance, to all 4 of those. Yes, I want all 4. And then I'm going to call them all productive because they're productive for the tech team for sure. And proceed. Now, all of those very quickly were assigned in that category and productive, and they will then be available here in the classified tab, and you'll see that this total pending went down to 143. The other fast way to go through it is once you click on one, you can assign that category and that productivity status, and then go to the next, and then go do the same for the next one and the next one. And you can stay in this detailed view and keep classifying until you're done. Now, when do you stop? That's a great question. A lot of people ask, and a lot of new admins especially want to classify everything and get that 143 down to 0. Well, you can do that. That is a possibility. And we default in here to just those where the minimum duration is 5 minutes here. You can show all activities, which will show things under 5 minutes as well. We default to 5 minutes because that's important, but we recommend that you don't worry about things that people are spending very little time on. So for example, Hotel Zaza, we had a recent all hands, and so people were on that 4 minutes across all of our users in this account is a very small amount. We recommend that you don't classify under 20 minutes of duration across your entire organization, and you just stop at that 20 minutes. If you'd like to, you certainly can, but just stick to those that have a significant amount of time associated with it, because when you're analyzing the data, that's where you need to focus your time on those big chunks of time, and don't worry about the ones that have less time.
Suzanne, we did have a question around the category dropdown. It has a preset list. Is that list static, or is that something that they can customize so that it fits, their organization?
Yeah, so we have a number of classifications that are auto-classified. And you'll see in here, we do this with a crowdsourced algorithm where we look anonymously at a lot of different customer accounts, and then we apply the most common ones. So there's about 46 categories that are in there by default and going to be applied once your users access those activities, and that should cover around 90%. If I were to go into the settings page, that's where you're going to see all of the different categories and the number of websites and apps that are assigned to it. You can change these names, you can delete them. If you delete one, like for example, AI tools and assistants, that's an auto-classified category. If you delete that, we will no longer auto-classify your activities with that particular category. So that's a way for you to customize it. If you go back into classified, and here you can also say, show me everything with this particular category, and that will come back and you can see it there. This is particularly helpful if you're changing a category. Maybe you want to merge or split, and you can do that here.
Okay. And then also on that categorization, there was one that says ignore. Somebody had a question around that. Is that something where if you have that set to ignore, does that mean ActivTrak stops tracking any of that activity, or what exactly does that mean?
So ignore is a useful category because what it will do is it'll still track that information, and you'll see those activities that are classified as ignored. So for example, when you're in Spotify, a music tool, we ignore that because it's not relevant, and people often have music in the background of their work, and we're encourage that. It helps especially people doing focus work. But we don't show that in all of the different reports. So it'll take any duration that is spent on Spotify or any of these other activities and not include that time spent in the reports themselves. Live reports, insights reports. The only one you can see that in will be activity logs. So you can go back and say, oh, what are all the account or all the activities that are ignored? Is this impacting things? And you can verify that using the activity log.
Okay. And if you need to drill down into, if somebody is showing that they are visiting a website or something, for example, you've got business.com right there, and you showed that you had a couple of people going there. How do you see who those users are?
Sure, you can click directly on that line, and it'll bring you to these details here. So you can see the users, the titles, the subpages. The other place you can do this is within the live reports, top categories, or even top websites. So let's go into top websites and see a particular account. I'm going to go into calendar, for example. You can see the titles, you can see the subpages, you can see the users, and their usage and when they're using it. This is just for today, so it's a short amount of time. But the live reports will have all of that detail, as well as a small snippet of it in the classification itself. When you're in here, you can also say, okay, these are all the classified ones. Let's go to undefined, meaning it hasn't been classified. So whatever this one is that Lorian's using, I can go into update website classifications and directly classify it right here. This one has less than 1 minute, so I'm not going to actually classify it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for my side. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Omri because he's got the rest of it.
All right. Thank you so much. That's really, really great content and such great questions. We really appreciate your engagement. This is for you guys, we're just guessing at what topics you'd care about, but you guys actually tell us. There is a set of questions, and I promised to those who asked them that I would cover them live around how do I define, so we got the time zones, but how do I define when to actually track a given set of users? Maybe I only want to track, say, my contractors during work hours because they bring their own device, and I don't want to track them after hours even though they agreed to install the ActivTrak agent. So what you do is you go down to the settings and scheduling feature. We have a default schedule, which includes, Monday through Sunday, all 24/7, and everybody's automatically put in there. But if you want a different schedule, for instance, our sales team operates from a 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can, and not on the weekends, you can go define that schedule, and then you can move users into this one. And as a result, they truly won't be tracked outside those hours. So it's not simply that data doesn't show up in reporting. That data is never sent up to our servers. So this is our privacy commitment. That also can address, there was a question about part-timers, and I think this addresses a set of those scenarios. And if not, let us know in the Q&A. So let's switch over to what we call potential false activity, which is more commonly referred to as mouse jigglers, but is not exclusively mouse jigglers. So we have a really unique take on this that is a much more comprehensive solution than you might see out there in the market, where we can do both, finding known pieces of software that are mouse jigglers. We're always aggregating those lists. Our customers send us, hey, I think that we discovered a new type of, software jiggler, and so we add those to our database. So we're always looking for those. Anything that's dual use, we allow. So some people have legitimate use for macros. Those macros could be exploited to create mouse jiggling activity, but they can also be used to just automate repetitive tasks to make your teams more efficient. So we're very thoughtful about what goes on that list. The second thing is pattern recognition. Maybe it's from software that's one of those dual use, or something new that hasn't showed up yet, or maybe it's from hardware. Maybe they're plugging in a USB device, or maybe they have one of these physical jigglers that moves their mouse around, which is where the name came from. So any kind of repetitive input, we had a question, are you guys logging these? What do you do with the keyboard and mouse? How do you know that somebody's active versus passive? Well, we are looking at those signals on device, but we never log them. We don't do anything with the keystroke information. We never send it up to our server. We're literally just looking to see, are you active or are you passive? Are you engaging with your device or are you not? And then we throw that data away. But what we can do while we're looking at it is see if there is a non-human repetitive pattern. And so we have some patterns that the agent is looking for. If it discovers one of those, of course, it'll measure it for a few minutes to see that it wasn't just like, a person doing it for 30 seconds at a pretty good pace. And then after a few minutes, it'll trigger the pattern recognition alarm. And then lastly, if anything makes its way through either of those two filters, we have the active time settings, right? That Suzanne just shared with us, where we're going to cut that activity off. But we also have an alarm that will tell you if somebody was doing high activity. In this case, it's defaulted to 45 minutes. So if you have the default at 60 minutes, we'll stop counting that activity completely. But at 45 minutes, we'll alert you, hey, this person seems to be having high activity. Again, as we mentioned, it's typically below 10 minutes on average before somebody switches a window or a tab. So to get to 45 minutes is very high. You can configure that though. You can change it from 45 minutes to something a little bit lower. And that'll catch all the ones that seem to nevertheless might be an indication of a mouse jiggler. Well, what do you do with all that information together? You, of course, can analyze it to see if there's repetitive behavior. So is this just a one-off? Maybe it's a fluke. Or is this something that we're seeing every single day? This person triggers the same kind of alarms. So that's what I'm going to show you here, just to kind of develop the thinking behind it, the philosophy that we have. So you come in here to alarms. It's not under settings, but rather its own section called alarms. You have configuration, and I'm going to put in PFA just to kind of shortcut us to the 3 PFA alarms. These are offered standard inside of every account. You can go and see a lot of detail here, but I'm going to go click edit just to show you the kinds of information that's in here. So for the repetitive activity, It's going to look for certain signals. We trigger the phrase, artificial input. If it's an app, if it's a software one, we'll say app. So this one, we want to say, no, exclude those. So not the ones that are known apps, but all the other kinds that might be artificial input. So pretty simple criteria. You can do things like take a screenshot if you have our screen details add-on. That's very powerful to see, hey, maybe you can actually catch what was going on screen. Maybe it's totally normal, or maybe I'm in macro V2 trying to, waste time in Excel. And then you can configure how to get these notifications. So we saw the 3 default alarms for the 3 types of issues. You can decide to subscribe to all of them. You can just decide that you only care about a certain one. And you can also decide who and how to send it. So in this case, we give you a default email template, which includes a ton of information, right? In the subject, it'll tell you repetitive activity detected on such and such computer. We'll give you the alarm name so you know which one it is. We will tell you the user if we know the user. We'll tell you the computer, what time it happened. We'll tell you the description of the activity that was going on at the time, and then any associated executables or websites that we're able to detect. So a lot of information plus some important news. Maybe the admin had read about how our methodology, in our knowledge base, but 3 months later, they kind of forgot some of those details. So we put a lot of information here so that they're armed with how to interpret it, as well as what are potential recommended actions, where to go, and a link back to the activity log if they want to deep dive on the specific time period for that user around those events. Alternatively, you could also set up an external notification to Microsoft Teams, to Slack, or to really any webhook destination, and you can build a similar type of notification using those variables, similar to the default email template that we have here. So the combination of detection, correction, things like active time settings that prevent these activities from going on too long. The same thing happens by the way, if we detect a repetitive activity, we will shift that activity from active to passive, and then your passive time settings will take over. And in our case, 4 minutes later, it'll stop counting completely. So we have detection, we have mitigation, and then we have analysis to see if this is a trend. Combined, that gives you all the tools that you need in order to really get to the bottom of whether, first of all, mouse jigglers are happening, where they're happening. Maybe it's a particular team that needs to have an intervention, and then lastly, mitigation tools. So it's not actually impacting your reporting. Let's talk about the analysis. So we saw how to configure the alarms. If you don't already have the risk level report, this is going to be rolled out to all accounts now. So this is a pretty cool feature. It was a premium and screen details only feature, and now it's being released to all accounts so that you can take advantage of this important feature. When I click on risk level, one of the features here when I'm configuring at the bottom is I can apply a risk level from 0 to 10. And when I look in the risk level report, I get a count, but I also get a weighted count. Essentially, if you think that this thing is worth a 10, you can set it. So you can see most of these are set to 2 or 3, but file sharing is considered a bigger risk. So we want to weigh that a little higher. And it'll give you not only the count of how often this is happening, but it'll give you how much total risk it's creating. What's important about this, whether you care about the count versus the weighted count with the risk score, is simply that you can pivot on this analysis for a time period, for a group of users. You can look at a single user, or you could do it by alarm type. And so here's where you might look at those PFA alarms, pick on one. In this case, I'm just looking at file sharing, for example, and I can see who the worst offenders are. And so now I know who to go do further analysis on and maybe have an intervention with. Okay, I am not currently seeing questions on that, which is great. If you come up with them, please continue to submit them. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the next section. So we're going to talk about, actually, sorry, I'm going to come back here first.
We do have one quick question on that one topic. Just when is the risk level report going to be available?
Next week. I don't have the exact date, but
Okay,
it's
next week. Perfect. That's great. Thank you.
And you may already have it. Actually, many of our accounts already have the risk level report as of today. It's just going to finish rolling out by next week.
Okay, great. Thank you, Omri.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's take a look at PTO. So as we're trying to round out the kind of total picture here of an employee's day, there are a couple factors that we realize create little gaps here. I'm going to talk about two of them. One is when they're taking time off, an entire day is missing. And you need to know, for instance, was that on purpose? Or was that just somebody not showing up? Or maybe showing up but working below their active day threshold, below 2 hours, and then we didn't see that counted as a day. And so in order for ActivTrak to be the one-stop shop where you can have total confidence that you know whether this time is right for them or it's not right for them, maybe they're working 40 hours a week, but they were on PTO for 3 days, so you're only expecting 16 hours. How do you know that? And how do you avoid having to look in another system? What we do is we pull that. This is a new feature that's going to be coming out in Q2. It's powered by an HRIS integration where most organizations' time off data is stored in their HCM or HRIS. And what it allows us to do is pull in those signals about time off for each individual user and merge it together with their activity record so that you can view not only things like their location and their total time, but also whether they should have been off that day or whether they should have been on. So you have an expectation. This is going to first be released in the working hours report. I don't have a demo to show you, but we're really excited about this feature. In particular, it's going to be powered by HRIS integrations that are starting to roll out now. And so our first integration is going to be with Workday. There's a lot of interest in that. In just a moment, Megan is going to put a poll up to see what system your time off data may be captured in. It could be your HRIS. Please put that in. This is kind of the short list of kind of the next up HRISs that we plan to integrate. Yes, thank you for the poll. But it may be Excel. There's no shame here. We just want to know what kind of systems should we be supporting so that we can offer this capability to as many customers as possible. And so right now we're starting a rollout for Workday, where you can begin the configuration, we can analyze your data, and we can start building reports off of that. You can engage our services team. This is a little plug for our professional services team that does a lot of integrations, custom reporting, custom dashboarding, pipelines to move the data out to your data warehouse, et cetera. So those engagements for this kind of reporting, especially if you want to customize it, are available now. And lastly, the integration of your PTO data into the working hours report is targeted for Q2. So we would love to know not only where is your PTO or time off data captured today. If you have multiple systems, just put a comma, that's okay. And if you are using Workday specifically, would you like to be invited into this beta right now?
Yeah. And it looks like we do have some people who are interested in joining, which is
Yes.
great.
Oh,
I
excited.
right. Which is really great. Also, we did have a question. Will you be supporting an import if your HRIS isn't supported?
We do not yet have a generic. We are envisioning something like an SFTP endpoint that will be the generic solution. It's not yet on the roadmap. We want to prioritize the top few HRISs in our customer base, and then we will also be moving to support a generic upload option. Yes.
And we'll have the user experience in the app where you can configure a schedule within there as well. So you'll have several different options on how to get that
That's
in.
right.
Like
That's right.
we use our calendar, Google Calendar for PTO. So we'll have to enter it in.
That's right.
All
So
right.
speaking of calendar, I'll try to move pretty quickly. So the other piece of the puzzle is not just whole days where they may have taken off, but particular hours of the day where they may be working, just not on their device, but those are legitimate business activities. And so I just wanted to do a plug for our help center, support.activtrak.com. In this case, I just entered the search calendar and you can see all of our integration guides as well as more details on the offline meeting feature. I'll click into Outlook calendar, for instance. You can see it's very, very detailed, exactly what admin role you need, all the click activities, every permission you need to enable, etc. Very detailed guide to help you get set up. We have hundreds and hundreds of our mid and enterprise customers who are already using this offline meeting integration. And what it leads to, and you can get there from the API and integrations integrate page. We have our Google Calendar integrated, for instance. We have Outlook and other, a growing list of integrations. What you'll notice is in, for instance, the working hours report, you have a column. As soon as you integrate, we'll grab a column. We're actually pulling 7 days back. So people have up to 7 days to get their calendar corrected or up to date. And we'll credit them for that activity just in case a spontaneous meeting showed up and they want to get credit for it. Now, when is this going to happen? Of course, there are field teams sales, for instance, or other kinds of service folks who may be going on site and are not on their device. There's return to office, where some teams have a policy of shut your laptop while you're in meetings, but they want to get credited for that activity. And then we have a whole host of other scenarios where people might, for pockets of the day, maybe be taking a call from their phone rather than their computer, for instance. And so in order to get credit for the full day, you pull in your calendar. We credit that offline meeting time. It's already available, and you'll see the slides that we share with you afterwards have a ton more detail, but these are available in something like 8 different reports today. For instance, if you have one of our upper plans, you have the activity breakdown that Suzanne showed earlier, and you can see that while this team seems to be below their 7 hours target, they have an 8-hour day and we allow 60 minutes of break time. They're actually not when you add the offline meeting time. They're actually over. They're at 7.4. And I can go into greater detail, for instance, in the offline meetings tab or in the users tab to deep dive on specific individuals. In this case, I'm looking at Pietro. We have our calendar data set to private. And so you can see I don't see any of the meeting titles here, but I can see all the individual instances. And I can see, hey, does this track with my expectation for Pietro and his offline meeting? Lastly, of course, there are account configurations associated with this because you may have slightly different use cases than some other organizations. So again, if you come to settings and account configuration, one of the ones you may have seen in the background while Suzanne was demoing this was offline meeting settings. And so you can decide by default, we say that a person just adding a personal solo meeting shouldn't really count as business activity. They should have at least one more person invited. So we count that as 2 total invitees. If the other person declined, again, that's just a solo meeting. We don't count those. But you can change that. You can say, no, it's fine if it's just one person. And yeah, once in a while I'll catch going to the doctor appointment, but I don't care. Or you can say the opposite direction. No, these are really only for team meetings. There should be at least 3 people in there, et cetera, et cetera. And lastly, how do you want us to handle like full day events? Typically, we say if it's a full day, that may not actually be offline meeting, and you certainly don't want us to credit them 24 hours. So what should the limit be? Here it's set by default to 8 hours. Okay. That brought us to time. So I'm going to pause
Did.
there, even though we could keep sharing more insights. I think we got to our agenda today.
I think we did too. Suzanne, do you want to share some information? I think we covered a lot today. So again, just as a friendly reminder, we will send out the recording. We also have some slides with some of these things just written and documented on it. We will share those slides as well. And that'll be either later today, at the latest it'll be tomorrow, but we will share that information so that you have that. And then I think Suzanne's also going to share another great place for you to be able to go and get some resources for this type of information.
Yes, so if you could click to the next tab of the Academy. So you might have noticed in the app on all report pages, you'll see something that says ActivTrak Academy. You can click on there, or you can go down into Help app, when you're in the app, go to help and then ActivTrak Academy and get access to this. This is where you can share courses and guide yourself or your colleagues to a number of different trainings on how to configure ActivTrak, how to do our Active Directory integration, all of these great ways to make sure that your account is configured for your organization so your data is accurate and getting to the right people. We have curated learning paths. So if you're an admin or if you have a new admin coming in onto your team or starting to use ActivTrak, we highly recommend the Getting Started with ActivTrak for administrators, where it has a number of short trainings. All of these are short trainings. We're not going to require or ask you to sit through 2 hours of anything. And it will share, you'll be able to see all of the main points about configuring your account and making sure that you understand how to use it. So we highly recommend you go in there, take a look at the catalog, go through a number of courses. We're always adding new ones. Several of our reports have links directly to this, the Academy, and how to use those particular reports. So take a look, take some of those courses. If there's something that you want more information on, let us know. We can create courses or we can add them to our list of courses that we are creating. But this is a great way to train your staff, train yourself up on how to use ActivTrak and make sure you're getting the most out of it.
Absolutely. And the other thing I just wanted to also call out is that we do have these getting started office hours. Don't let that name like fool you. These are meant to be office hours where anyone can come, whether you have been with us for 5 years or you are new and you're getting started. These are great sessions they are live small group sessions where you can get your questions like more specifically answered on, certain configuration things, or how do I see this, or how do I look at that? Oftentimes we have a person from our productivity lab that is there, somebody from our customer teams who are working with y'all all the time, who kind of know, like, how do you do this for this situation, or I'm trying to look at this. So that is an excellent resource. And we have those very frequently. So I can't recommend those office hours enough for that. Just sort of, if you really need that quick live, like you've got questions and you just need this sort of configuration type help, or really understanding on where to see things. So with that, we are at time. Thank you so much for all of the fantastic questions. I did, before we leave, I did want to pop up one last poll, just because I always know that people want to follow up on certain things with us. And so I want to go ahead and make sure that you have an opportunity for us to go ahead and continue the conversation with you. So one, if you'd like a demo. So one, if you're not a customer, or if you're a customer and you saw some stuff that maybe you don't have access to and you would really like, a demo, please let us know that. We're happy to help you with that. If you are, someone who's just, hey, interested and you're ready to move forward and you want a salesperson to reach out, happy to connect you there. And then also, if you're a customer, one, thank you. We really appreciate you being a customer. And if you would like for someone from your customer success team to follow up with you on something, but you were just sort of needing, wanting them to follow up, we can definitely make that happen. So please just go ahead and let us know that. And we'll just leave that up there for right now as a reminder. And if you don't select an option, then you're selecting no. So we just left that off, not making everyone have to choose stuff. And anyway, so thank you so much for joining us today. Again, great session, wonderful participation, and we will send out the follow-up email as soon as that we can, no later than tomorrow. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.